Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 160 of the I Rock Knits podcast. My name is Cori Eichelberger, and go by I Rock Knits everywhere on the internet. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and I have a website, iRockKnits.com. So you can join me in all those places. If you go over to the website and join my newsletter, you get a free pattern. And I send out a newsletter every time I release a new design, and I give you a coupon code. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would go over and subscribe on my newsletter to that. I don't spam you with a bunch of other junk. I just let you know what I have going on and provide you with a little bit of a discount just for being a subscriber on my website. So that would be great if you'd go over and join me on that. It is a really gray and rainy day here. It was raining yesterday, but we have been in a significant drought, so I really shouldn't complain. However, we've lost all the beautiful leaves off of our trees. There's only one across the street that's a little bit of orange and yellow left on it. And I am trying to take pictures of my new designs, and it's cold and rainy and gray. And so yesterday we tried to do a picture and it was just not working. So I'm gonna try for tomorrow. These patterns needed to go out about the 1st of November, and it just hasn't happened. I am wearing my Striped Dream sweater today, although it is rainy and, you know, cool. It's humid. Like, it just feels kind of sticky and kind of, it's a little balmy outside. Like, I was a little warm, and so I was like, oh, let's put on a short sleeved sweater to record the podcast. I want to just welcome everyone. Have you guys ever been in a mood that you were just feeling like really, not really, I don't think nostalgic is the right word, but like just thankful and so pleased with things, the way things were going in your life? Like, I have just been walking around going, you're so fortunate. Everything is going really well right now. You're in the middle of wedding planning, but you got your designs out this fall. Things have been busy. You got to go to Reindeer. I'm going to teach in North Dakota next weekend. We have a trip planned to see my parents in South Dakota in 2 weeks, and then Thanksgiving's coming. And, you know, we talked to the kids and said, do you want to come on Thanksgiving Day? Or do you guys not want to do two Thanksgivings that day? And I'm just like feeling so, I don't know, maybe it's a little corny, just a little blessed and kind of like just positive. I'm just feeling really positive. I don't really think that it has to do with my weight loss, but I am feeling better too. Since January, I have lost just over 30 pounds. I started in that program that was super restrictive, and that really worked well for me. 60 days of, you know, really restricted eating. And then when I went off of it, yes, I started to gain a little weight back because it's hard to stick with that. So then I kind of recommitted myself to less food, more activity in June, and took off I don't know how much I gained back, maybe seven pounds or so. And now I've continued to lose. So yeah, my body feels lighter. My clothes fit better. I'm able to walk further, better. You know, last year at this time, I had my shoulder replaced and I was in a sling, and that was my last replacement surgery that I needed to have done. So currently, if you're new here, I have 2 knee replacements, a hip, shoulder, 2 thumbs. I had my little thumb joint here replaced in both my thumbs. And then I tore my plantar during COVID too. So I had a major foot surgery. So yeah, I was just laid up and sitting around, and I had just put on quite a bit of weight and was just not mobile, just not feeling mobile. And now I'm out and walking with the dog. We do a big loop in the neighborhood. Or we go to the dog park. I'm trying to do 3 miles, you know, 4 times a week, 5 times a week. Now I haven't gone in several days because it's been raining, and I could go today. Like, it is not currently raining, but I have to get this done. And I wanted to record it on Saturday, and then I was going to record it yesterday, got all ready to record. And then Kylie came over and we did wedding budget with the husband. and we're way over budget, and she's feeling super stressed, and it is just about impossible to do a wedding on a budget. Yeah, we offered for them to just take a chunk of money and get married, go away and get married, and they opted to have an actual wedding to keep it really small. So they're trying to keep it about 50 people. But they picked a very nice venue. And with that comes expense, right? This is going to be a little Corey's stories here. They're having it on a Sunday afternoon, December 8th, because it was half the price from Saturday or Friday. And so they chose that. So we got it for a deal. But then there is an alcohol minimum, which they do want to serve alcohol. They're opting to not have a cake because they don't like cake. So they're having bars and cookies. They went with the least expensive caterer. Well, not the least expensive good food caterer. So they didn't go with a high-end caterer. They chose lasagna, Caesar salad, bread, carrots, and then this bars and cookies that they tasted 7 different kinds of. And they're both big bars and cookies fans. And so they went with that. And, you know, we're not, it's not like we're having a steak dinner. They're having like a sausage lasagna and a vegetarian, what is it? Butternut squash, maybe a lasagna. And they said, everyone's going to want to take the vegetarian because it's so good, Mom. She said, it's the best lasagna I've ever tasted, which is strange, I think, to have at a wedding, but they wanted good food, like feed people good food. They're not having a DJ. They're not having a band. They're just playing music. They're doing their own playlist off a computer. Like, they have really, really tried to pare it down. And it is still costing a small fortune. They're having 1 maid of honor and 2 best men. The wedding party is tiny. It's just to feed 50 people, to buy alcohol for 50 people, to have some flowers. She had what did she have for her budget for flowers? I think it was maybe $1,500. And I thought the lady might laugh us out of the shop, right? Like, we found a lady who does it out of her home, out of the garage in her home, who came highly recommended. She's so wonderful to work with. She did not laugh at us. She was like, no problem. Absolutely. How do you feel like about carnations and baby's breath as filler? That's far less expensive. Kyle's like, I don't care as long as the colors are right. Like, we are doing this on the smallest budget possible. But see, Stevie had to have a suit. Kylie had to have a dress. You know, Kylie needed shoes. Stevie needs shoes. It's just incredible to me how people do this. I mean, we're not having it at the local VFW, and they didn't go to the Justice of the Peace, but it is costing thousands of dollars, which we are able to provide. We have 1 daughter. We want to provide that. So we gave her a chunk of change, and then his parents also chipped in, which was lovely because the kids, they just don't have a lot yet. Kylie's only been working at her new job for 3 months. And she's like, I have $2,000 saved, but she didn't make she made money, much more than some people, but she made money working for the government when she was a clerk at the Court of Appeals, but not like she will be making now. And Stevie has a student loan to pay back, and we're keeping their cars running, right? But it's just like, gosh darn, how do people do this? I'm sure some of you have been through this. But yeah, there were some tears, and there was some stress going on around the budget and how we had gone over our estimates, which obviously they were just estimates. So anyway, I could go on and on about this, but we had like a 2 or 3 hour meeting yesterday afternoon where she and I went through some things that we don't have linens yet. The linen budget came back at $2,000 to cover the tables. And she's like, screw it, I'm not having linens. I'm like, we have to cover the tables. I mean, they're like crap tables, right? You can't set people down at plastic round. Now, you know what I mean? They have to be covered. And so now trying a different vendor for less. And we don't have that many tables, but we do have to fill the space because the space is bigger than a 50 person wedding. So we do need to have some things sitting around so it doesn't look so cavernous. And we hired 2 wedding planners, a team that worked together, and they were very reasonable compared to other wedding planners. I mean, wedding planners can be $10,000, right? And so, yeah, it's just I've been really busy with picking up some of the pieces for her in this, providing my feedback, because I also don't want it to look like a really nice venue that was like a really chintzy wedding where we don't have tablecloths, right? And we can make them, we can purchase tablecloths. There are lots of options, but it's just been a lot. She and I meet every week, and then we've been meeting with planners and calling the planners, and the venue sent out that alcohol request for like what tier of wine, how many choices, and hard liquor, how many choices, and Diet Coke and seltzers, and so we had to pick the tiers, and so we picked the cheapest tiers because that's who she is. Like, she didn't want to spend the money, and then we won't meet our minimum in alcohol because we only have 50 people. So the lady suggested that we do a bigger tier so we have higher end alcohol, so we don't end up just paying money to them even though we didn't drink it. It's just been a lot. So I'm going to make some changes in my life and my plan going forward here. And so I wanted to share that right up front. This is special notes or things I have to tell you. I am going to be only podcasting for public consumption on YouTube, my Chatting with Friends videos going forward once a month instead of twice a month. And then Patreons will still get 2 podcasts a month, but it will just be me talking in the one podcast. I have just been finding it twice as difficult to record with a person, get the person on board, get them on Zoom, get them organized, have them come over or do it, and then get their list and then upload it and edit it, and then do my own podcast on top of it, which is really what I added, was doing an additional segment at the end for the Patreon. So it's taking me twice as long as it used to because now I have this whole other segment. And my numbers on YouTube are not growing. I haven't grown past 5,100 subscribers in a year. And so even though I love doing this and I want to continue doing it, I have to find some time, especially right now. I should have done this in September. I've been scrambling to get guests, so I don't have a guest for you this week. People are busy. I have now a bunch of guests lined up for recording the end of the month, right? Because they're just like, hey, could we do it in November? One said, hey, could I do it in December? And so to get the guests organized and send them out, some questions and then get their lists. It's just been taking up like almost 2 full days of my week every other week, and instead of the 1 full day that I could commit to it. And so I'm going to just change things up and see how that goes. So today, everyone will be seeing this part of it, and then I will be sharing a special section, just a little bit of special section at the end just for my Patreons. But if you are not a Patreon member, you can go over to patreon.com and join me for just $2 a month. Another thing that I'm so thankful for that I started that money saves me every month. I can pay all of my hosting fees for my website, my bills, my Canva subscription, my MailChimp subscription, my my security and my computer. I have just a huge chunk of monthly bills, and I was stressing every month to pay that out of my business account. And for a while, I was just paying for it out of our family budget, right? And I really wanted to, in the last 2 years, make it all about just living out of this, my business account. And so, that's what I'm going to do. I don't think it will bother anyone. I don't think anyone's going to be, terribly upset. If you're a Patreon member, $2, $4, or $10 a month, I am so thankful for you. If you need me for anything, ever reach out. If you want to go for coffee, if you want to knit together, which reminds me, we are having knit night on November 19th from 5:30 to 6:30. Everybody is welcome. I moved it up to a little earlier time slot for the West Coast people who are behind us in time, and for the East Coast people who are ahead of us in time. I'm still trying to find that magic number. I don't really want to do it during the day because I do think that limits a lot of people. And so we just come and knit together. We share what we're knitting. We share what we're working on. We just chat for about an hour. It's just my way of like trying to get to know some of you a little bit better. People who watch, like I talk to an iPad. I've been talking to an iPad for 6 years. And now I recognize some faces. Like I really know some people. Brandy and Christina and Adina. And there are so many of you that get on every time. I know Janet in real life. She's super, super supportive of my small business. But yeah, I've met so many of my testers now in real life, and I should name everyone, and now I feel bad that I didn't, but I just listed a few off the top of my head. Sorry. Maybe I'll put a list at the end. I don't know. Because that's what I used to do, say hi to everybody. But yeah, so that's what I'm going to do moving forward. Chatting with Friends will come out on all of the odd podcasts. So it will be episode 161, 163, 165. That will be it will be the second half of the month usually, I think. It'll be the second Tuesday in the month, roughly. Things move, as the weeks change a little bit, but that's what I'm going to do. I am already booking well into next year for teaching, which is great for me. That is where I make a majority of the funds that fund my business is through teaching. And that's a bunch of work too. Like I have to contact people, I have to beg to teach, I have to apply to teach. And then I spend 4 hours. Right now I'm spending time applying to teach at Wisconsin Sheep and Wool. So if any of you are on the board for the Wisconsin Sheep and Wool next September, I'm filling out all their paperwork with all my classes. And then sometimes I don't get picked, right? And so I spend this amount of time, which is fine. But they want your description of your class, and they want the homework, and they want pictures for every class. Most of these people want 2 pictures for advertising, and that's all before you get picked, right? So you fill out these big docs, and then you send it away, and then they're like, sorry, we just had so many good teachers this time, and you're like, dang. Yeah, I have to figure out how to manage my time a little better. And have a little more time. I really struggled to get my fall designs out in time because I was just spending so much time on the computer and not enough time knitting cowls that needed to be knit so that the pattern would be done. All right, so we are having book club for Patreon members on December 17th at 5 p.m. And we are reading The Girl Who Smiled Beads. And I reviewed this book 2 or 3 episodes ago. I'll just give you a brief description. In 1994, Clementine and her 15-year-old sister Claire fled the Rwandan massacre and spent the next 6 years migrating through 7 African countries, searching for safety, perpetually hungry, imprisoned and abused, enduring and escaping refugee camps, finding unexpected kindness and witnessing inhuman cruelty. They did not know whether their parents were dead or alive. So it is the story. It's quite uplifting. Spoiler alert, they make it. But it is that historical perspective. And we, when we had book club last month, we discussed that someone had just read it, and I had read it, and she said, I just want to talk to people about it. And I said, okay, then let's pick it. So it really will provide a good discussion. So that will be on December 17th at 5 p.m. All of that is recorded if you're a Patreon member, so you can watch it later. You can watch it back. So if you can't make it in that time slot, or if you don't like to be on Zoom or to join something, then you can just watch it back, and that is only available to Patreon members to watch back. Okay, let's talk about my finished objects this week. I have two. Well, actually, I have two designs. So this is the final versions of my Sunset in Autumn cowl. It is knit top down with increases in a cone shaped using Cascade 220 Aran weight. So it is kind of a color changing yarn. It goes from a light orange and yellow down to a dark and then back to the light again. I used 2 skeins of Aran weight, but I did get yarn support from Cascade Yarns to knit these. They're knit on a size US 9 needle, so they work up quite quickly, and it's all textured stitches the whole way down. So I'm going to show you this one. See how it's shaped? I showed you some of this before, but it's just got some fisherman's rib purl stitches. This is slip 3 stitches, purl knit purl, some purl dividing rows every time, and then fisherman's rib. And this is super simple, yarn over, knit 2, pass the yarn over, fisherman's rib, then we go back to the slip stitches, and then fisherman's rib at the bottom. So it's super textured. It's fairly open, as you can see. It's quite squishy. It's thick because it's Aran weight. Now, could you work this up in worsted? Absolutely. You would have to go down a needle size and it would turn out smaller. If you wanted to only knit this in half of it, if you just wanted the short cowl, you could stop after that purl ridge right there and get it out of 1 skein. It'd be really close to get all those repeats done. And if you don't have the same, you're not using the same yarn I'm using, I'm just going to tell you this right now, that these are 3 purl rows in between. And if your yardage is just a little bit short, you can do 2 purl rows in between, and you would get the same, kind of the same look. So it would be an easy mod if your yardage on your Aran weight yarn is a little different than the Cascade, right? That is all in the pattern. But you just increase every time after a dividing row. You do a few increases just to make it get a little wider on the way down. And then the thing I like, if you are from the Midwest or Northern North America, or is that you can pull it up around your neck like this when you're out and about. And it doesn't really smush your hair too much because this is quite loose. Can you see? That's quite loose. And then you can cover your ears. Let's say you're running around and you're, you know, it started snowing while you were somewhere, and then you can just pull it up and then it can come back down, right? And it also folds really well. So if you don't like something up around your neck at all like that, because this has got purl stitches, it can really become a folding situation where you can wear it multiple ways. 2 of my testers were able to pull this out over their shoulders because they knit loosely enough. I can't quite do that on this, that it would pull out over my shoulders, but using different yarn, different needles, even getting gauge, you could block it. I absolutely could have blocked it wider if I wanted, but I just chose not to. So you kind of get this really nice, snuggly for putting on with a coat. I think this would make really good holiday gifts for people because really it works up so quickly, 2 skeins of yarn. And once you make one, you hardly have to refer to the pattern because you know what the repeats are, right? You do 10 rows here, and then you repeat this twice, then you repeat this 5 times. And so it's so repetitive, but really fun to knit because there's so many things kind of going on. I do think it would stand up a little bit to a variegated yarn, but you are going to lose some of this, right? It's not going to show quite a bit. So I had 6 testers, so there are samples out there for people to see. I'll show you this one too. Okay. So this one really gives sunset vibes, I think, right? The orange and the purples and the yellows and the, yeah. So Sunset in Autumn. If you are on Ravelry and you type in Autumn Sunset, you're going to get a whole bunch of patterns. If you type in Autumn or Sunset Autumn, Sunset in Autumn, then you will get this one. I just really wanted to call it Autumn Sunset, but there were so many patterns called that. And I was just like, oh, and I hate it when you are trying to find a pattern and you can't find it. And Ravelry does not have the best search engine, because it would cost whatever they told people, $1 million to get to upgrade to the fanciest search engine to match any, you know, to give you a lot more. Did you mean when you type something? So we're gonna just go with Sunset in Autumn cowl. And this will be advertised by Cascade 220. I will put the colorways that it's available in over here. It is $13 a skein, so I think that is quite reasonable, right? But you could use a big box store Aran yarn and probably get it for less, especially if you went to Michael's or Joann's and used a coupon code. But I really do love how this kind of is color changing. They have it in blues and greens and purples and grays and browns and blacks. There are 21 colorways. Okay, let's talk about my other pattern that I have coming out. So it has a cable motif all the way up the front. I designed this using Mayak Tibetan yak yarn. It is absolutely lovely to work with, but very pricey. So it is a sport weight yarn. You could use any sport weight. You could use heavy fingering or light DK to make this in the same size. You might have to adjust your numbers a little bit and make, if you wanted to go up to worsted weight, you'd have to make a smaller size. But it has a really unique construction. It looks like, wow, ribbing and a cable. That can't be too hard, Corey. This pattern is challenging for one row. There is one row in this pattern that is a challenge. Then my testers, and I'll share that in a second. Then my testers asked if I would do it in stockinette, because not everybody loves ribbing. I love a ribbed hat because I think it fits better and it's easier to gift. So you will see that then I switched and did the stockinette on the melon colored one to go up, and it has a pretty flat top. We did the decreases quite quickly in order for it to come out just perfectly. So the decreases happen, you know, usually it says to knit until you have 2 inches left. On this one, you knit until you have about 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches left. It happens pretty rapidly, but fits quite nicely. But here's the trick. Here's the challenging row. You are knitting the brim, starting at the bottom, you're knitting the brim. So you're knitting here and you're going around, and it would be like this. It would be knit like this, right? So here you're knitting this brim and you're going around and round and round, and you're doing every 6 rows, you're doing a cable cross, and then you do one wrap and turn where basically you just turn around and go back the other direction, because now we need to flip this so this goes up in here, and then you have to offset all of this knitting that's happening here. So I did one purl row so that it flips up exactly where you want it to flip up. I did one purl row, and then you have to offset the entire hat so that these knits and purls become purls and knits. In order to keep this purl right here going right here, you have to offset it. And I think I can show this. There's a picture of it in the pattern. See how this has a purl here and now it becomes a knit? Yeah, that does not happen on the stockinette version, but you do have to go back in and put purls next to the cables. It's one row. It's not hard to do it. It just plays tricks on your mind a little bit. You're like, wait a second, what am I doing? Why am I turning around and going back the other way? Why are the purls knits and the knits purl? Why am I not purling this now if I was knitting it before? I'm going the opposite direction. Like, don't think too hard. Basically, I put good pictures in now. My testers were so astute at like helping me. There are now sentences in there that say, keep going. It's okay. You are right. If you're doing knits on top of pearls and pearls on top of knits, it's going to work out. Do a couple rows. It's accurate, right? Because your brain just wants to tell you that this can't be right, because that's not the way we knit. And in order to keep that cable on the outside, you guys can't imagine how many times I ripped this out, but to get it right. But it is a lovely classic hat, and I really need this pattern to just blow up and become everybody's new muscle burrow. Right? Everybody has a super long brim. Yes, you can make it shorter if you don't like a tall brim. I just think it looks very classic with a tall brim like that. And I think it's super gender neutral, kid friendly. I wrote it for 6 sizes, baby to extra large adult. I do have it modeled on a baby and an older big-headed gentleman from my testers. So I want to thank them all, because this pattern had 7 updates. We found 7 different, well, more than 7 probably, different problems in adding wording, changing wording, fixing the crown decreases so that they all lined up exactly right. It went through a lot. So my testers, and they all got it done super fast. And now someone just asked in the testing group this morning, hey, I just got to the part where she started late. She's doing the stockinette version. And she's like, I just got to the part where I'm flipping the brim and I don't understand why we're not. And another tester jumped in right away and she's like, you are having the don't think. Don't think about it. You're having the same problem we all had when we were like, wait, why are we wrapping and turning and going back the other direction? And it's just the only way to make it work. I hope you guys all love it. I hope you go out and buy it from me, because I really worked hard on this hat and I think it's super special. I'm calling it the Stevie Hat because my daughter's fiance wears hats all the time. So I designed this, worked on the prototype last year at Christmas time in a bulky yarn. For him, it worked up really, really, really quickly. It didn't turn out exactly like this. The brim was shorter, etc. But it just had it in the back of my mind that I really wanted to do it in a finer weight of yarn. So it's a light hat. But in this Mayak, I think it would be lovely and warm. But for people who don't like a big bulky hat, yeah. So as long as I can get pictures taken, and it is gray and not raining, so I could probably go out this afternoon, and we'll have to see. Otherwise, we'll try it tomorrow if it's not going to rain all day tomorrow. 2 new patterns, so there will be a newsletter coming out. I don't know that I'll release them on the same day. I'll probably do them separately. Sunset and Autumn Cowl will probably come first. It's closer to being laid out. That's the first one she worked on. And then the Stevie Hat will probably come out within a few days after that. So there will be 2 newsletters with coupon codes. And I just can't say enough about the support of my testers and the support of all of you. What you knitting, Corey? Well, I finished the cowls and the hats, and I have a stack of whips. So I started back on my Crofthoose mitts that I'm making to match my pink and purple hat. I only have the tops left. And I think why I stopped is because I thought it would be smarter to make mittens than fingerless mitts. I thought I would wear mittens more to match my hat. And so I stopped, but I've run out of purple yarn. And so the dark purple, in order to finish the mitts, I can't use that color on the top. And there is not a mitten pattern. There's just a pattern for the fingerless mitt. So I can make the top of the mitten match the hat, or I can just kind of do it solid, which is what I'm thinking I'll do. I'll just use up my yarn and do just the top. So it has the little houses, Crofthoose. If I remember, I'll put a picture in, but that's what I was working on. And then the next design I'm doing is going to be a collaboration with Fiber MacGyver. I met with her at Reindeer, and I have an idea for a darling hat for the holidays. And then maybe we're going to do some really fun colors for right after the holidays for a event I'm going to possibly at the end of January, beginning of February here in Minnesota, if we can get that done. So that is going to be called the Lollipop Park Hat. I've told the story of Lollipop Park in my stories before. It was a little tiny kids amusement park down the road from my house when I was very small. It had a little train and it had a tiny little Ferris wheel for kids. And I just have such memories, such fond memories of that. And this hat is really cute and fun and colorful. So I think that Lollipop Park will suit it. I'm just waiting to hear back from Susie about yarn colors. I sent her a proposal and the colors that I would like to do it in, and so we're moving forward on that. I have a tip or trick this week that I saw on Instagram, so I'm going to record it and drop it in here, but it comes from the Instagram account odd_row, and it's a different way to do German short rows, and it's fascinating to me. I get fascinated on Instagram by these people who come up with really unique ways to do things. I just love that kind of thing. And so I saved the video and I put it in my email so that I could show all of you. So I'm just going to drop that in here. What have I been watching? Oh my goodness, last week I was knitting every day, all day to get the cowls and the hat, the second hat done, because I had to knit another hat in the stockinette version in order to take a picture. So I was in the chair knitting a lot last week, but I finished watching season 3 of Lincoln Lawyer. I really like that show. I like all the characterization. I don't know that the storyline is super intriguing. I mean, you kind of know that in each season he's probably going to solve the crime and win. But the way that he gets there, and they're doing quite an arc with his assistant, who now went to law school and became a lawyer, and then the gal who was his driver, who is now going to become part of the office. So it did have a very nice storyline. And then I watched the new documentary on Martha Stewart. Fascinating. I wouldn't say that I am a big Martha Stewart fan or not. I didn't follow her, but the documentary was fascinating. She is a character. There's a lot of bravado and there's some things that I'm like, are you sure you want to say that in a documentary and put it out there? So I'd really recommend that. Then I started watching Baby Reindeer on Netflix. I'm just not sure. I watched a couple of episodes. Will anybody who's watched it chime in and tell me if it gets less weird and better? I am not a fan of like dark comedy, and I kind of feel like this is what this might be. It's just so weird. I just don't know if I should keep watching. So I stopped. Then I watched Pop Star Academy, KATSEYE. That is the new K-pop group. My daughter Kylie is really into K-pop. She loves Blackpink, and she went to their concert in Chicago, and she's been collecting some of the K-pop cards from the album, different albums, and she visited on vacation this summer. She visited a bunch of K-pop stores out on the west, in the Pacific Northwest. They went to Oregon, and there was a bunch. And then this week I met her, a week ago, I met her at a K-pop store to hand off some wedding stuff and she was going to be there, and I was coming from St. Paul because I taught at the Yarnery. Oh my Lord. I taught at the Yarnery, guys. First time ever. They moved into their new space. The classroom is beautiful. It is so big. It had a giant TV screen, big conference table. Everybody had plenty of room. It was so great, except Ravelry glitched for several of my students and they couldn't get back in, and then it glitched for me and I couldn't get back in, and I had to use someone else's laptop to finish up. It was very stressful. But on my way home from there, I had this packet of stuff that I had printed for Kylie and I wanted to give it to her. And so she was like, well, I'm headed to this K-pop store in Minneapolis. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to go right through there. So I'd never been in a K-pop store before. So I thought it might be good for me to watch this video on KATSEYE. It's a girl group. There's this whole documentary, and they start out with 20 girls and they train them for a year or two, which is part of the whole K-pop revolution of the South Korean band groups getting trained in training camps and then becoming these very, very popular singing groups, singing and dancing groups. The dancing is incredible. And so you watch these 20 girls go down to 6, and they don't know that in the first 4 episodes. They don't know that that's the way they're going to be whittled away, and is kind of an elimination competition. And so they all become really close friends, and they're training every day, and they're living in Los Angeles, and just getting picked was a big deal. And so then you start rooting for them. Really good. I very much enjoyed it, and I'm not a K-pop fan. I didn't know anything about the music, and now I do. And then last night I watched a podcast, video vlog on YouTube that is called Domaine Sauvage. Domaine Sauvage. It's French, and it means wild field. And this couple bought this farm in France and are restoring the whole thing. And they have 2.5 million followers on YouTube, like huge amounts of people following. Never seen it before. I watched the 1 year in review from 2023 to July 20 or August 2023 to July, August 2024. They did a 1 year review. They put out weekly episodes apparently. And just seeing the changes that they made in the land, and how the water floods their barn, and the barn is 200 years old, and the roof needs, and they're living in this old house that they're going to rehab, and they have to take out all this thicket. And the man just works so hard every day. They have a little 1 year old baby, and so the mom is always taking care of this baby, and they're cleaning out the barns. It was really good. So it's called Domaine Sauvage. I'll put it down here, and it means wild field, or fields that are wild in French. And the fields are wild like this. Nobody has inhabited this land or these buildings. So they're tearing stuff out, and I watched. It was probably an hour or so. Really good. I will definitely go and watch more of their episodes now. Okay. I saw a couple things on the internet this week that I really wanted to share. There is a new pattern out by via Knit Picks. Well, both of these are via Knit Picks. So I think I saw them in the newsletter. But the one is called Happy Hands. It's a free pattern, and it's mittens attached to a scarf for kids. Like, you know how you used to have your mittens on a string? Now they're just attached to a scarf down your sleeves. It's so cute. What a great idea. I just thought it was really brilliant. And then there is a Campfire and Smores pattern. Someone literally knit logs, a fire, and some s'mores. So cute. If you have grandchildren or children that are play age, right? Like where they just love to make believe and stuff, or you're big campers, this would be a great gift for a dad who loved camping just to have. But it's super cute. I would highly recommend you go over and look at both of those on the Knit Picks website. So since I've been so busy, and then I went to Rhinebeck and I've been teaching, I got 2 audiobooks for you this week, and it was called Lessons in Chemistry, and it was by Bonnie Garmis. I think everybody probably knows about it. I've been waiting to get it on Libby for forever. And I found it really just a great read, great listen. Chemist Elizabeth Zott is not your average woman. In fact, Elizabeth would be the first to point out that there's no such thing as an average woman. But it's the early 1960s, and her all-female team at Hastings Research Institute takes a very unscientific view of equality. And then she meets a gentleman in the lab, and it's kind of the story of her life, her entire life. This is a 12-hour audiobook, so it's not super short. But I just enjoyed every minute of it. It's really, because I was born in 1961, I think of the 60s in a more romanticized version of what it was like, although I know all the women were being given drugs to survive being mothers and staying home and not having, lives outside of, many of them not having lives outside of the home and feeling smothered by children and all that. I would definitely recommend. And the second audiobook is called They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman. I did not love this because it was about rich, wealthy kids who go to a private school, and that turned me off. They are so entitled, but it is a murder mystery. It needed to be set in that place and time. So I would say that if you love a murder mystery and the characters are people that you don't like, there is some redeeming qualities by the end, right? In Gold Coast, Long Island, everything from the expensive downtown shops to the manicured beaches to the pressed uniforms of Jill Newman and her friends looks perfect. But as Jill found out 3 years ago, nothing is as it seems. And so they go to this Gold Coast prep. Jill is a scholarship person, so she doesn't always feel like she fits in. No one knows she's a scholarship person at the school, but she gets to be in the most popular group at the school. And there is a whole society called the Players that you get kind of indoctrinated into. They're terrible to one another, to do the initiations and things. It just, there were lots of parts about it that really turned me off. And I think it's because I just can't imagine some of this crap happening in a high school. Like, I know it happens, but I just can't imagine it. And I don't want it to be happening. So I had a hard time listening to some of it. But once I got a couple of hours in, I also didn't want to not know what happened. So there you go. It's 10 hours on audio. The narrator is quite good. And it's very intriguing. You know how people will foreshadow what's happening and then you're like, oh, well, I saw that. Not everyone see that. I saw that and I know how it's going to end. Exactly what happened. And then that's not how it ended, right? She drops this bit of foreshadowing. You're like, oh, I totally know who done it. And then you don't. So I can't say too much bad about it, but it was just the viciousness of the girls. I hate vicious girls and guys, and they all think they're holier than thou, and that does turn quite a bit by the end. So redeeming value.
Hey, I actually read one more, Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. I just forgot it. In the spring of 2020, Laura's three daughters returned to the family's orchard in northern Michigan. While picking cherries, they begged their mother to tell them the story of Peter Duke, a famous actor with whom she shared both a stage and a romance years before at a theater company called Tom Lake. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Great audiobook.
Okay, that's all I have for the regular podcast this week. I'm going to do a special section here at the end for the Patreons only, but I will see you in 2 weeks with a guest. And until then, have a happy fall. Hope you're enjoying the cooler weather. And we did have snow on Halloween Day. We got at least an inch of snow. It didn't stick, but it came down fast and furious for a while. And then we ended up going out to dinner with friends, and so I had all this candy left over. We handed out a tiny bit before we left. We went out to dinner, we came back, we handed out a tiny bit when we got home. And so I dumped it in a giant sack and told Kylie to take it into work and plop it in somewhere. She has candy jar on her desk. So I gave that to her yesterday because otherwise I would have eaten $100,000 bars until the end of time, that entire bag. You know, I don't buy candy bars, but Snickers, I bought Snickers and Milky Way. $100,000, what else was in there? Oh, it was all good. Little Twizzlers. I bought everything I like. Why didn't I not buy something that I just don't even like? So I had to get that out of the house right away. Okay, love you all. Bye.